Hi guys, welcome to this video tutorial where I will show you how you can integrate React into your existing web application. So let's imagine that this is our web app and we are required to add the counter component. So the counter component, what it does is increases the counter, decreases the counter, resets the counter to 0, and when we click in the auto counter, you will start counting from 1, 2, 3, 4, and so until we stop the counter. Okay, this is the layout of our application. As you can see, it is using Bootstrap. Bootstrap uses JQuery, so that means that JQuery and React can work together. I will do a separate video where I will show you how easily you can integrate your existing jQuery components into React components. But for now, let's just focus on our counter component. Okay, so this is the layout of our component. Oh, another thing that I want to say is that you can download the source code of this video into the video description. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is we need to add the reference to the React libraries. So we can copy them from the react.js.org. So we're gonna copy the libraries. And we also need Babel. Babel it compiles JS script into JavaScript, so otherwise our React components won't work. So let's add that, and there we go, we are ready to go. As you can see, we don't need node.js to use React, because React is a JavaScript library, so we can just simply import it into our project. Okay, I'm gonna create a client app folder and add the source folder and add components. So that's a pretty standard React structure folders. So we create a counter.js where we're gonna write the code for our counter component. Use strict, what it does is it forces us to declare all the variables that we use. It's a good practice to do. Function counter. Okay, because we are not using node.js, so usually we should be able to say export default counter, but because we are not using node, so this won't be required. Instead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna call the React DOM, so render. So what we're gonna render is our counter component into the document get element by ID. So we're gonna call this app. Okay. So if we go to our index page, so let's create a div and we call it app. So let's copy the layout of the counter. So we create the return, okay, oops, sorry. Okay, we format this. Okay, so the first thing that we have to be careful is that in HTML we use class, but in JX it's called class name. So basically we have to replace all the class. Ctrl F, replace with class name. Okay, so that's, so we'll replace everything. There we go. So Okay, we save it, and okay, so we have to add a reference to our script. So what we do is so we create a reference to our count counter, so client app source components counter. So and you have to say that this type of script is Babel, otherwise the browser if we don't say it's Babel, the browser will use JavaScript as default. But as we said, this is JX, and JSX needs Babel compiler. Okay, let's save it, and let's see if our component is still there. Yep, it's not doing anything right now because we haven't implemented the events for these buttons. Okay, the first thing that we have to do is we have to create a hook counts counter set counter so we say React use state 0, so that's the initial state of our counter. So instead of 0 here, we call our counter. So let's start our counter in 1 instead. Okay, so if we refresh the page, oops, it created sorry, let's close that. Oh, sorry, it's called use state. Sorry, so that's a mistake. Okay, so we see that our counter is 1, but let's set it back to 0. Okay. Okay, our counter is 0. So here, the increase button, we're gonna call the onClick. So onClick, what's happening in the onClick is we're gonna set the counter is equal to counter plus 1. So that will increase the counter. Okay, so let's refresh it. So say increase the count. Okay, it's working. So to decrease the counter, we're gonna do the same. Okay, so we copy this. Actually, instead of doing it this way, we can create a function, a handling function. So we say function handle decrease. Okay, so let's set the counter -1. Okay, so is the event arguments. So we need to pass that if we want to use the event arguments. In this case, it's not required because we are just decreasing the counter to -1. Let's see. So increasing, decreasing. Good. So reset. Reset is quite straightforward. So reset, what we're doing is we're just setting the counter back to 0. Refresh it. Oh, that's another thing that I'd like to say is, oops, sorry, some error going on here. Oh yeah, syntax error. Okay, why we are refreshing this is because we are not using Node. When you use Node and React, anytime that you do an update, it will be reflected straight away into the application. But because we are not doing that, so we have to refresh the browser. Okay, let's see. It's increasing, decreasing, sorry, increasing, reset 0, reset 0. So our component is working quite well. So now we're gonna do the auto counter. The auto counter, I'll do it into the next video. Okay, bye now.